The man slammed open the glass doors to the Brooklyn convenience store, strode brazenly inside, straight to the back, grabbed a case of Bud Light, and ran right back out. The whole scene took less than a minute, which is why when it came time for New York City detectives to investigate the crime, they were having trouble getting a usable photo of their suspect for their facial recognition system. But then one detective, who was a fan of 90s sitcom Cheers, had an idea. He noticed that their suspect looked similar to B-list television actor Woody Harrelson, and the New York City Police Department ran with it, investigating hundreds of suspects, disrupting the lives of thousands of their family members, and spending thousands of dollars in the process based on nothing more than a facial recognition search that single detective had made of the actor Woody Harrelson's face in the New York City Police Department's database. In short, they investigated people and made arrests based on little more than a detective's 90s obsession. And it's the sort of police misuse that is so blatant in that story that is rampant across police departments who use facial recognition in America today. And the fact of the matter is that facial recognition is everywhere. According to analysis by Vox, 1 in 4 police departments across the United States already use facial recognition. And that's not to say anything of national organizations like the FBI and Immigrations and Customs Enforcement who use it routinely to surveil millions of civilians. Now, I've always been passionate about civil liberties, and I've been following facial recognition since close to its inception, when it was just a fun party trick. But as the years have gone on, I have seen it turn into a practically Orwellian surveillance tool. And it's for that reason that I am forced to recommend a total ban on the use of facial recognition in the United States by law enforcement. For 3 reasons. 1, it chills the First Amendment. 2, police misuse of facial recognition is targeting everyone, but especially minorities. And 3, the common argument that it's only an investigative tool is outdated and just plain wrong. So first, it chills the First Amendment. And let's start with a scenario. Imagine that you're a political protester, impassioned about your cause, and you want to go out onto the streets. Would you be more or less likely to do so if you knew that your protest would be monitored by facial recognition? According to analysis by the American Civil Liberties Union, you would be far less likely to do so. And that's the first problem. Facial recognition doesn't directly contradict the First Amendment, but it does chill the effects of the First Amendment because people are scared to know that they're being monitored by people who might not share their views, and that concern may well be warranted. Because according to studies conducted by the Electronic Frontier Foundation, a digital privacy watchdog, police departments across America have already started to use facial recognition to identify political protesters. The same political protesters that have come after generations of the political protesters before them that have made America the great country for freedom of speech that it is today. And it's in the interest of protecting the freedom of speech that we should ban law enforcement use of facial recognition. But that's not reason enough alone. After all, we already use things like surveillance cameras. We don't have a problem with those. Well, the fact of the matter is that the problem goes far beyond that. Because police misuse of facial recognition has started to target everyone, but especially minorities. And that's for a very good reason. Because according to studies conducted by the New York Times, facial recognition is viewed as somehow infallible by those in the law enforcement community, when that really isn't the case. They think that it's the magic technology that always gets their suspect, but the evidence doesn't bear that theory out. Because according to the National Institute of Standards and Technology, who is a government technology watchdog, facial recognition misidentifies, throws up false positives on minority faces at up to 100 times the rate that it does for those with Caucasian complexions. And that's serious problem, but it's not like it's facial recognition's fault. After all, facial recognition is based on artificial intelligence, and artificial intelligence works by training an algorithm on one set of images and applying that training to another set of images. And the vast majority of facial recognition algorithms have been trained on Caucasian faces. And so, of course, they won't work on any faces that are even slightly different, because that's not what they were intended for. But it's still having the effect of police over-investigating and over-oppressing minority communities. In fact, the problem is so bad that according to analysis by the American Civil Liberties Union, when facial recognition was applied to every member of Congress, it turned up 28 of them as being known criminals. And the fact of the matter is that facial recognition is a valuable technology, but police are using it improperly way past that. Because according to analysis by the New York Times, police routinely doctor images that they give to their facial recognition systems, or like in the example that I cited earlier with Woody Harrelson, just use images of different people entirely. And that's a problem, because it spends money, it disrupts lives, and it possibly puts innocent people in prison, the vast majority of whom, thanks to the nature of facial recognition algorithms, are likely to be minorities. But the fact of the matter is that the most common argument against facial recognition is that it's only an investigative tool, something for police to use to identify suspects. But the reality is much worse, because according to analysis of just a single county in Florida by the New York Times, a single county that uses facial recognition, they have made over a dozen convictions in a single year based on nothing more than facial recognition. They use facial recognition technology as the primary basis for putting people in prison, in federal prison. And that's a serious problem, but those people might be getting out soon. Because according to legal analysis conducted by the Brookings Institution, facial recognition is likely to soon lead to flawed convictions under the Fourth Amendment. Because the Supreme Court routinely rules on technological developments like facial recognition as they apply to law enforcement. And based on their past track record of rulings, Brookings Institute predicts that sometime in the next few years, those facial recognition convictions may be totally overturned by the Supreme Court, putting tens of thousands of people who have been convicted in the last dozen years back on the streets. Whether they be guilty or innocent, we can't tell, and that's precisely the point, because their convictions are made on nothing more than the flawed technology that is facial recognition. And so it's because I love civil liberties, and for the three reasons: that facial recognition is chilling the First Amendment, that police misuse of facial recognition is targeting everyone, but especially minorities, and the fact that the long-held argument that facial recognition is only an investigative tool is outdated and wrong, that I can only leave you with this. Quote, "He thought of the telescreen with its never-sleeping ear. They could monitor you, night and day." And if that quote sounds Orwellian, it's because it comes from 1984. But that's the future that we are rapidly accelerating towards with our development of facial recognition for use of law enforcement, and why I can only recommend a total ban of the technology. Thank you.